We are live. All right. Let me turn this off. Welcome to Guitar Huntery in Another Country featuring the one and only JP Cormier. How are you, man?
I'm good, Jeremy. This is awesome. How are you? What's going on over there anyway?
It's good. I've been super excited about this. We've been trying to coordinate this for a while, and I've been in the process. I'm building out a studio
Yeah,
and just trying to get my head around all a thousand things I've never done before. But
yeah.
I'm
I'm
very thankful
sitting in
for your time.
mine. It's behind me here. I'm just at my credenza
Oh, that's
talking to you.
amazing.
Yeah,
Now, is this the same room as your live? So, if you guys haven't seen, JP has such a fun channel, and you're the string theory. Is that in the same room you're in now?
it is.
Okay.
Yeah, the camera's just facing the opposite direction.
Oh, okay, that's what I assumed. So
Yeah,
that's awesome. So it's looks like this amazing kind of wood cabin thing. So you're just a
yeah. The
guitar
entire
picker.
room is built out of raw hemlock,
Holy cow.
raw unfinished hemlock. We built it ourselves and designed it. We designed every angle, every acoustic treatment. Was my wife's a mathematician, and I'm a sound engineer. So
Okay.
it was real easy for us to figure out what we wanted to do with the room. So it turned out acoustically virtually perfect.
That is so cool.
We have a matched pair of Audio Technica mics on either side of the room here.
Okay.
And then all of my Aston Origin stuff around for close miking, and the room just is a giant speaker
That is
for
so cool.
recording.
That is so cool. I am working on that. So I have fumbled my way through the sound treatment in this room, and it's just an 11 by 17. Used to be a garage. It's now a studio. But I've added, just I worked with Sweetwater and worked with their, like they gave me directions like hold a mirror, do this, go in the corners, and so I put up the sound treatment last week, and it immediately is so much better because
Oh yeah,
it's interesting. Like I mean, if you don't know, it's not hard for a room to just sound like you're in a gymnasium when you put a microphone in there.
yeah.
And
I'll tell you an old trick that I've sworn by for 25 years because been doing this that long. You should always have a big fluffy leather type sofa in a recording space.
I've been telling my wife I need a sofa out here so I
Yeah,
can.
I have two of them here. One is an
It's for the
antique,
sound
and
treatment, baby. It's not for me to take a nap.
well, it's the world's best bass trap.
Okay, that makes
Because
total sense.
yeah, bass goes down to the floor into the corners. The sofas just kill all of that. It makes it room really clean.
Okay, that's so good. I mean, there's
Yeah,
something about. So before I was in this space, I was in the basement, so like 40 feet over here. But I eventually, it's a concrete basement and wood, like the joists of the floor um, beneath my living room.
yeah,
And I eventually I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I just have to kill sound. In some of the YouTube videos I watch of guys making videos, I just use moving blankets.
yeah,
And I used moving blankets, put them everywhere that the camera didn't see. And it was really like jarring the first time I played an acoustic guitar in there because it stops.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
no, but as soon as I put a mic in front of it, it took everything I was doing to a whole nother level.
yeah.
But cool. Well, yeah. So that's super exciting. So let's jump in. I want to talk about. So this is mostly focused around talking about buying guitars in Canada versus buying in the U.S. But it's also just us being friends because I feel like you and I pretty quickly just hit it off and like we're calling each other. Well, I called you a couple weeks ago when I'm walking through Walmart
Yeah.
and we're just yucking it up talking guitars. So tell us about yourself. Tell us about where you come from, and because I have a hunch that we share a lot of the same people because we have a very similar kind of angle and heart. But yeah, tell people about you and who you are, where you come from.
Well, I was born here in Canada, of course, born up in London, Ontario, to parents that were actually from the East Coast in Cape Breton Island. So my father was a fiddler, my mother was a piano player, and the next brother after me became a guitar player, and there was one more guitar player in my family, another brother. And when I was 5 years old, I started stealing my brother's guitar while he was away at work, and I had access to his vinyl collection, and in that collection was Chet Atkins, and so that's where I started. And
Wow.
by the time I was 9 years old, I was virtually playing professionally. I did television appearances when I was a kid, and I did some contest work, and was winning against adults. And when I was 15, cut my first album. I went on a tour down through the United States with that, through all the, I then discovered bluegrass, of course,
Yeah.
through the Osborne brothers and Bill Monroe, Doc Watson, and Dan Crary were the two main influences of mine. I didn't even find out about Tony Rice till I was in my 20s, really. And went down to the States, and I got a job down there. So I moved to Alabama when I was 16 years old and stayed there for 10 years and worked all over the United States, all over the world, Nashville. I got to meet all my heroes and play with all of them. And
cool.
Came home in 95, and I put a record out in 97 that was nominated for our Grammy here, the Juno Award, they call it.
Yeah.
And so that album was nominated for that Canadian Grammy, and then it just went on from there.
Okay.
I'm now up to, like, I think the latest record that just came out is number 19 or 20, and won 14 East Coast Music Awards and the Canadian Folk Music Award and 5 Music Nova Scotia Awards, and then the last album I put out was also nominated again for the Canadian Grammy, the Juno. And I've just been touring 200 days a year for 39 years.
Whoa.
Until the pandemic, right? So then now we're here.
Yeah.
So,
so how did that go? Like, you're used to being on the road, and all of a sudden, your dog sees you 5 days in a row, and he's like, "What the heck, man?"
Yeah, there's one of them right here, and they're both here with me, Jack and Jill.
Oh.
And it used to be, Jeremy, I'd get home. I was away from home so much. I'd get home, the dogs would bite me.
Yeah.
But I mean, when this all went down, luckily, and it's sort of sad to say this, but I wrote a song in 2014, I think it was, called Hometown Battlefield, which was addressing the problems that we have here in Canada with suicide among veteran soldiers.
Yeah.
And we have 22 a month. And then I was hearing on the tour I was coming off of that in the United States, it's 22 a day that you guys lose to suicide, right?
Yeah.
And so I wrote this song, and it went viral. It got 4 million hits on combined between YouTube and the 2 Facebook platforms I had, the 2 pages I had.
Yeah.
And my YouTube page went from 80 subscribers to 4,100 overnight.
Wow.
And then I just left it sitting there because I was so busy I didn't have time to.
Yeah.
And so when the pandemic started, Ginger, my wife, who's also my producer, looked at the YouTube page and went, "Why aren't we? This is all we need right here."
Well, that's what I because when I shared this event the other day, it like gave me a notification I've never seen where it's like, you were about to tag a page that has more than 15,000 or whatever. It was like, it basically was this little warning, like, don't tag this person unless you mean it and they know you, which is, I mean, that is a message that, I mean, it's unfortunately a really ubiquitous message that a lot of people struggle with mental health, and mental health gone unchecked ends in suicide and really tragic things.
Yeah. But that song enabled everything that's happened over the past 18 months.
Okay.
And because without it, I wouldn't have had this platform all sitting here ready with nothing to do but just walk in and start making content.
Exactly.
And I found out pretty quickly that my idea of content was just basically, performing, because I just still wanted to play for people, right? But I also wanted to tell people not only how much I love guitar, but how there's more to guitar than just the normal brands we look at every day. And there's just so much to guitar.
Absolutely.
That people never think of, right? You're sitting there with a Huss and Dalton, and I'm here with Boucher's and Gallagher's and things. And people are really in the dark, about some of the other companies that make amazing instruments, right?
And so I have a Paget.
Yes, I've watched you at his shop.
Ben is incredibly talented, and this guitar, I mean, I played it and I was like, I'm buying this guitar. I don't know
Yeah.
how I'm going to afford it, you know? And so I've sold a bunch of stuff since then, and I'm still working on selling stuff. But yeah, I mean, there are so many amazing guitar brands that most of us have never heard of. I mean, this is number one. This is number two of two so far. And then there will be probably 15 or so more by the end of this year.
Wow.
But I mean,
That's
same
a
thing.
big
Like,
output.
so he was staged and ready. He'd built a bunch of rims, and he was coming out of working for Gallup, the Gallup School up in Michigan. And he had planned to stay there and keep teaching and build guitars on the side. And then the pandemic just threw him for a loop.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I'm just gonna go home and figure it out. And so it's been amazing. But yeah, I'm like you. I was buying and selling guitars, playing music out, and this is in 2016. I made a video documenting buying a guitar and just sharing some basic advice on how to buy 60s Martins, you know, Brazilian stuff. And I posted it and forgot about it and never looked back. And then 6 months later, I looked and it was like, oh, this has 90,000 views.
Yeah.
I guess I'll make some more videos.
And then you get the big money letter from AdSense.
Yeah, well,
Please join AdSense. We could be advertising ads. It's a great feeling, actually, when you do something like that. And Google's like, yeah, okay, let's pay this guy. He's getting enough people on board, right?
Yeah.
Pretty awesome.
But then if you don't know YouTube stuff, so basically, like, I think you have to clear $1,000 for it to pay you. And so it was like every couple months I would get, you know, $1,051 or something. But it took me a long time to get to where it was actually my job. And I started making videos to sell guitars. That was my first strategy, was like, well, I own a guitar shop and I can make these videos and people see these guitars. And very quickly, you know, I'd get 20, 30,000 views on a video and I'd sell that guitar in the first couple days after that video comes out.
Yeah.
And then I would get angry emails of like, well, why is the video up if the guitar's not for sale?
Yeah.
So that's when I was like, I have to switch to, how do you find guitars? How do you buy guitars? How do you know if it's a right when you look at it? So cool. Well,
I got really
awesome.
lucky. I got really lucky in the beginning because I have two very good friends who own probably two of the most unique music shops in Nova Scotia. And one of them, G&G Music and Andy Ganesh, partnered with me right away. He was already the #1 Boucher dealer in the world.
That's amazing.
And so we've been knowing each other for 25 years. And there's another guy right in the city of Halifax, Steve McNeil at Fantasy Music.
Mm-hmm.
It's another privately owned shop, and he carries the coolest stuff. And so those two, it was interesting you're telling the story because it's the same thing I did because I didn't know the shops.
Yeah.
But I got involved with the shops right away because everything I was showing, everybody's like, "Oh my God, I want to buy that! I want to buy that! I want to buy that!" And if I didn't have any way to sell anything to anybody, right? So they just partnered with me, and everybody's done fantastic. Like it's just the guitar sales are up like 700% worldwide, everywhere. It's ridiculous.
Everywhere. Yeah. That's where like Huss and Dalton. I mean, they're swamped for a long time. I ran into Jeff Huss, who's just retiring. But he said the same thing. He's like, you know, we've got orders for 3 years.
Yeah. Make sure you give them my highest regards.
Absolutely.
They're fantastic builders. I ran into them in NAMM in Anaheim before the month of the pandemic.
Right.
I was there. They're beautiful people. So are the Thompson people. Oh my God, they were good, nice folks.
I think the best guitars that have ever been made are being made right now.
I agree.
And it's still super fun. Like I love finding old guitars. I love the thrill of the hunt and the challenge and finding old stuff. But at the same time, I also think that just stuff right now is amazing. So I wanted to jump into just general conversation. So as someone who has, I have a shameful confession. I've never been to Canada. I've seen it.
Oh, you better get your behind up here.
I know. I'm vaxxed and I'm ready to get crazy.
Oh yeah, I got the superpowers too.
Yeah, I looked recently. I think it's like a 12-hour drive from me to you. It's like basically that away. Yeah. But yeah. So I've never been to Canada. I have been to Niagara Falls and I have seen Canada. But But as someone who has played and toured and bought a lot of guitars all over the place, what's your first take on what are the rules that, like, how is it different buying a guitar used in Canada versus the US?
Well, for the major thing, of course, is the size of the market. So your population is 10 times ours. We only have 34 million people here, right?
Yeah.
Total. And you guys are like 300 million people and plus.
Yeah, 340 or something.
Yeah. So, I mean, that in itself makes things very bizarre when you're trying to find, like most of the people that I know that are hunters like us, they don't buy inside this country. They go to the States. And if you do find, a unique instrument in this country, chances are that the person who owns it will never part with it because it's that hard to get in the first place.
Wow.
That they don't really want to part with it. So
that's a real difference.
Yeah, and guys like you that literally make a living out of finding these things for people.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't exist here. There's hardly anybody like that in Canada. It's a large, conglomeration of chain stores, Long and McQuaid and Steve's Music. And then you've got all the little small independently owned shops, but they focus on the big three line, right? Martin, Taylor, Gibson, and whatever unique things they can put in. So, yeah, it's very interesting. Very interesting. When I go on places like Reverb and Kijiji and different things like that, the best guitars used that I would buy, they're all in the States.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so there's also, what are the complications about bringing a guitar from the U.S. into Canada?
Well, it's a nightmare because so let's just say you found me a 68 Brazilian D28, right? So I'd have to, let's say it cost, just for the sake of argument, $10,000, right? So that would be $10,000 US, which for us would be 13,000 Canadian. Then I'd have to pay duty on that instrument. There'd be some kind of an import duty, even though it's an antique, and that can range from anywhere from 7 to 30%.
Okay, and is it dollar for dollar, or who sets the value? Like, is it $10,000 US, and it's a percentage on that, or is there like a book? Like, you bring in a car in like NADA or whatever.
It depends on what kind of mood the Canadian customs guy is in. And then, on top of that, they can't even enter the country unless there's proof on paper that the Brazilian rosewood in the guitar is prior to the moratorium.
Okay, has that changed? Has that changed since the site's update?
Not for Brazilian. Brazilian is still illegal, technically, right? It still can be traded, but it has to be before the moratorium. But the CITES laws did actually lessen a bit, which was good because that
was around like East Indian and
East Indian and some mahoganies, and Robin deals with it all the time. It's a nightmare. But yeah, it's the best way, really, unfortunately, that most people do this. I mean, it's not right to do it, but they'll go down personally, buy the guitar, and just drive back. It's my guitar, right? And they're hardly ever questioned.
Yeah.
But if you try to import it, with all of the paperwork and legal, it's really frightening.
Well, that's what so I sold a guitar to someone in Germany last year, and it was not an expensive guitar. It was a sub $500 guitar, made in China, and it was just, they don't sell these in this country. I want one. Would you pay? And they paid, basically paid new price and then all the extra stuff for it. Yeah. But it got hung up. I had to fill out tons of paperwork. I had to do a Zoom call with a customs agent in Germany, and they wanted me to pay to have a translator. It was like, this is crazy. Yeah. Like, and so that's where just like the commerce between countries gets heavy and annoying.
I know we have a free trade agreement, and I think it should be honored much more with musicians.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't mean just instruments, but people. We still have to go through quite a bit of paperwork so I can just come play there.
Yeah.
And I don't mind doing it. I hold a work permit there each year. I go to the union and get my P2, and I'm good to go there.
Got it.
I have enough gigs in the United States throughout the year that it lasts for 12 months, and it's relatively inexpensive. But there's so much commerce, like personal commerce and artistic commerce between these two countries. Like we look to the United States for all things in music, like just the history and I mean, I'm a Canadian and I write Canadian stuff and play Canadian stuff, but at heart, I play Americana. That's my favorite thing, right?
Because you also have, I mean, some of your most formative years were in not only the South, but you were in the Deep South.
Deep South, yeah.
Where were you in Alabama?
I was about 50 miles north of Mobile in a place called Wagerville.
Right.
Yeah, right on Highway 45. I was just not 50 miles from Mobile.
Sheesh.
It was a 6-hour drive from there to Nashville every
year.
Yeah.
I used to be in a sales gig. I was in Louisiana, and I covered Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama.
Yeah.
And there are hundreds of times that I had to be in, these like Seaverville or these tiny little towns north of Mobile.
Yeah.
And
that was my stomping grounds. Macintosh and what was the name of that? There was a little town, the first town you come to out of the north of Mobile there.
Oh man, it's been a couple of years for me.
Yeah, there was a good music. There was a like a pick and parlor type music store there.
Yeah.
It was run by a pastor, actually, and
sounds about right.
Yeah, and it was a killer place to go play music. All the old bluegrass guys, that played around there for years, used to go there and jam. Emmett Sullivan and Winky Hicks and Vance and like all these guys. Like there was a slew of brilliant players down there that never really did it professionally. They just got really good because they were surrounded by it, right?
Yeah. So Monroeville is where I
went. Monroeville.
Because there's a big So there's a big like so I was in health and safety, and so I sold all the instruments that measure the gases, the dust, the vibrations that could mess you up if you worked there for 30 years. But I would always go, and that was one of my favorite things is poking in these little towns, stopping in a pawn shop, stopping in little guitar shops, and I'd always find cool stuff. So when you go into a shop now, what's your short list? What are the things you're looking for, or what's a guitar that you get excited when you see hanging up in a little used or off the beaten path kind of shop?
Well, I don't know. It's hard to say. I've things change over time, right? Because our playing changes, I think, over time. And, when I was a kid, my dream guitar was always a Martin. But as time wore on and other companies presented themselves, the Martin kind of fell away because it became just a factory instrument. And then if you walked into a place and you saw, like a Gallagher hanging on the wall or even Yeris, like the real ones that came from Connie, Japan, that were handmade.
Absolutely.
It's so rare, right? And you see things like that, or an L series Yamaha, or like anything that's just unexpected. Old Gill, I love Gills.
Me too.
You'd see and that's that's one of the things I love about you. You get that D55, and I was like, oh, I just want to punch him. That's one of the nicest guitars I've ever played.
Where is it? If I move, hang on. It's
over
here in the corner.
Yeah, so those things always got me excited. Always.
Man, yeah, me too. That's what. Yeah, It's interesting. I feel like, and I want to have a larger conversation about Martins as well, because for me they are iconic. They were the first guitar that I loved. They were the one that I've read the books and gotten nerdy, and I've stood uncomfortably close on the side of a stage and like stared at guitar players like, what is that? Move so I can see the sticker inside. And then I remember I was young when Martin stopped putting the sticker inside and they just went to being back on the neck block. It was only like the 80s and 90s, right, that they did the stickers. But I remember being so frustrated because I wanted to know what it was, and then I had to get more eagle-eyed and know what's what. But yeah, so let me see what other questions I have here. How often are you? Because you're pretty full on guitars. How often are you looking for new guitars? And where do you look when you're poking around?
Well, I never stop looking for new guitars, and I live in music stores, right?
Yeah,
And when I'm on the road, just like you, every town there's a shop,
exactly.
and even if it's one of the chain shops, you just
Yep.
never know what's going to be in there. I've found some incredible instruments in box stores, right?
Yeah.
It's like, wow, I didn't expect to find that in here, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I do cycle through guitars, but I end up with a core of guitars. I've got about 27 right now, somewhere around that.
Okay.
And there's a core,
reasonable amount, a
yeah,
sensible amount of guitars.
yeah, probably half of those guitars will never leave here.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they'll never leave here. The other dozen or whatever might be 10. Those are potentially up for trade if I was to find the right thing, like a Magic, a Magic SJ200 or a killer herringbone 28 that's new. Like I've bought used guitars, but I'm afraid of them, and especially some of the vintage ones because of all the people, and this, like you have to be brave to buy vintage instruments because they're very volatile. And if you inherit somebody else's problems,
yes,
the guitar can become a money pit like that.
I'm so glad you're saying that.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I shy away. If I see somebody with one, I always play it and just get my mind blown, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if I had a chance to buy it, I likely would not because, well, another thing is that. And now I know this is true that all kinds of really heavy tour schedule guys use vintage guitars. Dan Tominski and Tony Rice and 100 other guys, right? But for some reason, I just feel like my tour schedule would just destroy a vintage guitar. I would be terrified to take a great guitar east and west as much as I do because the humidity changes are so drastic.
Yeah.
And these guitars often don't have truss systems, and on that goes, right? So, yeah, if I was to buy a vintage guitar, I'm afraid it would just live in my studio, and a place of great honor, of course, and be recording with it. That would be my go-to guitar to sit in front of a mic.
Absolutely. So I have 2 guitars. One's on loan, so it's so hard to point behind me. So
I see them.
A 61 J45 back here.
Oh,
and then I also have a 1970 Martin D41.
Oh.
I am so torn and so conflicted on this D41. It needs a neck reset, and it has an East Indian rosewood bridge plate. And so it plays hard, and it doesn't sound that great.
It needs a maple plate.
And I can't find a luthier around here that feels comfortable because it's pretty clean. They don't want to apply the heat and all the stuff that would take to swap out the bridge plate.
Yeah, it's pretty scary.
But this guitar also belonged to my first, dear friend that had tons of vintage guitars. And he meant to leave it to me. He didn't leave it. There's this whole long story. There's a video on my channel about that guitar. But I'm really torn because I love my friendship with Sam. I love what feelings this guitar made me feel when I first started playing.
Yeah.
And I never play it. It just hangs around. Because I'm freaked out to play it live. Because it's, a 51-year-old. Is that 51? Yeah, that's a 51-year-old guitar. And I don't know. I mean, it's tricky.
Yeah.
And vintage guitars, not all of them play great.
No.
And it's tricky. And
it is.
I think that vintage guitars are not for everyone, and they're not for the faint of heart.
No.
And when I'm looking to buy and sell, I don't buy and sell a ton of vintage guitars. And there are people that do it. My friend John Schultz with True Vintage Guitar, he's on a whole nother level than most people. He flew to South Africa during the pandemic to buy a Burst. He bought I think it was a 59 or a 60.
Oh.
And it's he flew, and talk about crazy logistics of getting back Like getting with the guitar, buying a ticket for it because they wanted him to check it. They're like, we'll put it up
Yeah.
front. He's like, no way.
Yeah, it's pretty scary.
Yeah.
Pretty scary.
Yeah, so not for the faint of heart in a million ways.
But I mean, like we were talking earlier before we started, like I'm playing guitars built by Robin Boucher, right? Like this is the JP Cormier signature model. So it kind of precludes me from trying to go look for something that's 100 years old.
Yeah.
When I got this sitting in my lap, right? And
yeah, run us through that.
Well, this is a beautiful guitar. It's a slotted headstock, 12 fret body, but neck joint, and I'm so in love with his 12 fret guitars. I have another one called Yogi, and she has no cutaway. And so when he found out how much I love this design, he said, "Well, I'm going to build you a signature model, and you'll be able to play right to the sound hole." So he put this is a very unique cutaway he has here. And it's a torrefied Adirondack top, ebony everything, East Indian rosewood back and sides, all bound in koa. And it's the best guitar I've ever played. It really is like startling for its body size. The strings are really dead right now too, right?
Oh man, it sounds killer.
Yeah, just sitting in this little space, it speaks to your face, you know? Yeah. I don't know how else to say that. You play it and it's like hitting you in the chin, right?
That's so good because, okay, can you tell me about your experiences with hearing someone else play your guitar and then you playing your guitar and just the differences that a guitar can sound like when you're the driver or when you're the passenger?
Well, it's massively different, right? And it's massively different for every guitar. Like most of the time, we want a guitar that we can hear projecting. Mm-hmm. And it's a weird thing to be able to hear sound running away from you. But you can with the right guitar. And plus, the literal vibration of the back of the instrument. You know how you say a guitar shake your ribs? Well, that's important, right? Mm-hmm. But when you sit in front of your guitar and it's shooting in your face, it's a whole other beast. And oftentimes it's not even better than what you hear from behind. It's just different. Mm-hmm. You have a different perspective of just how much is coming out of it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I love that about guitars. Like it's just they have so much. There's just so much personality in them. You know, I take this one and I'll show you another one I love too, is this one. I got this the year of the pandemic too. This is This is my Doc Watson Gallagher. Right. And this guitar that David and the boys down there built for me. Custom. I had the choice of two of them. I saw both sets of wood before he put them together. And this thing is just a hoss. That old thing about rings like a bell, rings like a bell. It'll just ring and ring and ring and ring and ring. Like it's crazy how good that guitar is.
Man.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I've been really lucky. Like I've been lucky all my life. I've owned all the major brands as you have, right? Like I've had a D45, had 28s, had 35s, 18s. I had some killer custom Taylors over the years. I was a big fan of Taylor. I kind of fell off of Taylor when they changed their electronics from Fishman to this new.
Yeah.
When Rupert Neve did the original expression system, I didn't like the way they sounded. They sounded sort of magnetic.
Okay, yeah.
And they fixed that with the second generation. Now they sound fantastic.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, so Taylor's, and of course Yamahas, a lot of Yamaha, like handmades, and
That's a thing that I don't see very often. I don't see I barely see Yamahas anything above FG 180s, FG 360s.
yeah. If I'd have known that, I would have pulled one out here. I got an double L 56 here.
Okay.
That's basically,
You told me about this one.
yeah, it's about five. It would be $5,000 or $6,000 US. This guitar is made by one guy, the master luthier at the shop in Hamamatsu, Japan,
Okay.
and it's magic. It just boggles the mind. It really
Okay.
does.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's one of the things I love, right? Like another that gives me to another example. You were talking about the best guitars being built right now, right? So
What is that?
this is, well, I'm not going to show you the headstock yet. Still got bent strings on it. There's a woof on that.
That is cool.
So it looks like a J45, right?
Yeah.
It actually is a J45, but it's made by Epiphone.
Whoa.
And this guitar costs about $600 US, or about $900 Canadian. And I'm telling you what, it's all solid. It's all solid rosewood, or mahogany. Sorry, mahogany. It's dark stained mahogany, just like the regular 45. It's I played real 45s right beside this one. There's no comparison, none. It was very shocking, actually.
Okay.
I did a video on it, and the question I asked was, like, what happens when you start to build guitars that compete with your own guitars?
Whoa,
right?
That's a really good question.
It is like this guitar sounds pretty well better than any J45 I've ever played, and it's identical.
Okay.
They apparently only just changed certain things by millimeters, like the shape of the pickguard, these really weird little things, so they don't get in trouble with like making an actual J45. But they're owned by Gibson. Gibson is telling them to do this, right?
Okay, man. And so what struck me about that when you were playing it was just the look. Like, super nerdy thing that I noticed is that the finish is a little hazy.
It's a matte finish.
So that's where I was like, I bet that's the Epiphone, the inspired by Gibson's.
Yep.
But that's awesome. I love J45s. I think that's a kind of guitar that everybody should have a chance to own.
And I absolutely love the finish on this guitar. It's so pretty. Awesome. It's that beautiful satin finish, and it's everywhere. It's on the headstock. It's everywhere on the guitar. And they say that it's poly, but it's so thin it looks like nitro to me, right?
That's what I've heard too.
Yeah, it's just brilliant, and I love that. Cool. I love that there's an option for somebody who really wants a Gibson. Absolutely. And just can't afford, because we're paying for that guitar right now in Canada. We're paying about $4,600. That's before tax, which is 15% on top of that, right? So it's so prohibitive to buy those instruments here that's a great option. $900, you're out, and it comes with a beautiful hard shell case. Out the door, you're good.
That's amazing. That's exciting to hear about. I think that another company, we talked about them a little bit, is Guild. I think Guild under $1,000 right now. There's very little competition. They're just so far ahead as far.
I'm telling you what, I'm going to buy a couple of those things.
I'm on the list for the BT58, the 258, which is the baritone 8-string.
Yep.
It's like completely inspiring, totally different than anything I've had. And I really like the Fishman pickup in it. It's not it's a jumbo, but it's not like, I don't feel like I'm playing in a mariachi band.
Yeah. Well, if you know anybody at Guild, hook me up, man.
I do. Yeah.
Because
I'll
I want to really, I would love to showcase them. That's another company that's sort of been a part of my whole career.
Yeah.
I was exposed to Guilds really early in my career because my brothers loved them.
Yep.
And Sonny James, the singer, the country singer, he played a Guild, a custom-made Guild, and he played a Martin D41 as well. But he also played. That was the first time I ever was exposed to Guild, was watching Sonny James pick one.
Yeah.
And it just blew me away. And of course, Richie Havens, right?
Yeah.
I met Richie in New Hampshire shortly
cool.
before he died. Played a concert with him. It was me and him and David Grisman band all on the same stage, and he signed one of my Yamahas, and which I actually sold to a collector here in Canada. And he was still playing that old Guild, like it was, and then he had a signature model as a backup, and he showed it to me. We were playing them. I was like, wow, this is such a great guitar.
That's cool.
Just a straight mahogany Sitka. Oh,
yeah.
Was so good. Good.
I've owned a ton of them. I remember kind of finding them when I was 18 or so, and I had a D40.
Yeah.
Like a terribly refinished, horrible.
I've seen this. Yes.
Yeah.
I've heard you talk about this.
I love it, man. It was like old and thumpy and played hard and like was so ugly, but it was mine. That was the first cool guitar I ever owned. And yeah. So after that, I had a bunch of D25s, a D35, a D4. I had a bunch of them, and I always thought they were really cool. Yeah. So let me show you. I want to show you the guitar right now that I am like moving heaven and earth to own is this. So this is a Paget Model 1.
Oh yeah, he's a fantastic builder.
So this is so this is made by Ben Paget in Monterey, Virginia. It has an amazing. This rosette is it's dyed maple burl and cocobolo.
Wow.
Actually, the cocobolo in this is from the back and sides of the other guitar that he, the serial number 1. This is serial number 2.
Wow.
And basically, like this is, it's a 13 fret body, which the guitar nerd in me, it's weird. The only other 13 fret that I know of is like a Nick Lucas from Gibson in the 30s.
Yeah. I've never seen one.
It's as someone who loves a 12 fret, but I also play up enough that I like having some space.
Yeah.
I will say it throws me off, like, because I'm used to like I run my hand up and when I hit the body, I know I'm at the 12th fret, and
you're not.
So there's all like, oh, hold on. And you have to back off a little bit. But I play this guitar every single day. And
I don't blame you.
I love that it's not perfect. Like he did pour fill and then he did French polish. And you can feel the finish a little bit. And there are a couple things like you can tell he has aspirations of world-class guitars. And this is just like, a couple things that he just has to tweak. But I also love kind of being in the beta group, getting in early and finding something cool. And I
have a local builder here, Hervé Bury.
Hello.
He's from Switzerland, and he's a very, very, very wealthy man. And he made his fortune in architecture, like building giant office buildings all over the world in the States. His last job was in Atlanta when he retired, and he built a guitar shop. Like a major one you'd expect to see at Martin. Wow. He's all by himself. He bought all the equipment, and he's built 4 guitars, and they're very, very unique.
Wow, built by an architect.
That's amazing. And he sold them for $5,000 each. We actually did a video here on him.
Okay.
And he doesn't take the money. He has the buyer send the check to his charity, and when the charity indicates they've received all the money, he releases the guitar to the buyer.
That's amazing. That's like it's not quite the same as Duncan guitars.
Yes, Duncan Africa, yes.
Yeah, which they're going to be sending me one in a couple weeks, and we're going to do a giveaway.
Nice.
So I've never played one, but I've heard a lot of. That's another Canadian. So they're not. Are they Canadian built or they're? made in Uganda.
I think there is some involvement in Canada, but I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah,
there's also an involvement with about Blueberry.
Yeah,
that's another one. They're made over in Indonesia, and they're incredibly ornate, incredibly beautiful looking guitars. And there's some Canadian artists that play them, but I've never actually had my hands on one. But I'd like to get one.
Okay, so I also have like an Avian. Have you seen them?
Oh yes. My buddy at Brickhouse Guitars in Kitchener, Ontario, is dealing these guitars.
They're very cool. This is the second one that I've owned. So this is, they call this the Skylark.
Yes, sir. All mahogany.
Yeah, so all mahogany. This one has a really crazy cutaway.
Yeah.
This one, so I've had two of these. I had their Dove 3A.
Yeah, the one that had the little ornate bridge.
Yep. And the fingerboard extension, it pulled some strong Stauffer vibes.
Yes.
I mean, if you're looking for a guitar that is unlike anything else that's being made right now.
Yeah.
I mean, all of these, they're just so unique and so different.
That looks really cool. How do you rate that one, Jeremy?
Oh, it's so that one I actually just finished editing the video. I think patrons just saw that video today, or maybe. Anyway.
Cool. I'll wait for it.
It's very cool. It sounds like it looks completely different than what you've seen and heard.
Right.
So it reminds me of other brands like Walden or Tacoma that have the holes that are off. Like there's something that happens in the mids to those guitars. They're very warm, very mid pushed. They're not overly bassy. They have a lot of treble when you move the sound hole.
Wow.
And I really enjoy it. That one is $12.99, and I think like for that price, it's a lot of guitar for the money.
Yeah, that's good.
Because they build them all. They'll do up to their 7As. I mean, they're $4,000 and $5,000.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at like all the variables that make a high-end guitar, provenance, construction, materials, labor methods, and then country of origin. All the other variables are the same that you would expect in most other places, but there is a difference with like it being made in China. Now, there is one of the things I noticed on most boutique guitars I own, so like the Paget here, and then I have my Huss and Dalton back here. There's something different about how the corners and angles get treated on full-blown guitars. They're really crispy, and they're really sharp.
Right. Yeah.
And then what I find on the Avian, they're more like other brands that I've played. All the edges are a little rounded, and I think it's just there's not quite the level of precision. I asked Ben Paget about it. I was like, why do you leave such crispy edges? He's like, it shows that I'm taking my time and I'm paying attention to the details.
Yeah, measurement measurement has to be perfect for that, right?
Exactly. Yeah, measurement is right, and then you can't you can't pick it up and ding it on the workbench. Like
no,
you're always thinking and working hard.
Yeah, people are really unaware of the incredible tolerances that a guitar builder has to know and utilize to just build a simple guitar.
Especially when you're. I mean, there's a ton of math in both a dovetail joint and a mortise and tenon neck.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
I've built enough guitars to know that I'm bad at math. I knew I was bad at math long before I tried to build a guitar, but just the amount of. I remember building a Telly years ago, and just thinking like, all right, I can't put the neck on until I have the bridge on. Well, I can't line the bridge up until I know how the neck pocket. I'm gonna guess.
Yeah.
And I guessed about 1/8 of an inch too far to, So then it's always like the high E's always jumping off the fretboard.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I'll show you one more guitar.
Yeah.
While we're talking about unique instruments, man. This little fella here.
Whoa.
Now,
that's mahogany,
this wood is 50-year-old Honduran mahogany that the builder didn't actually know they had. They found it in storage in a parking lot.
What?
On their property where they used to go and eat lunch, and the one of the founders of the company who had passed away had stockpiled this stuff all his life. He bought all kinds of wood all his life, and of course his name was Kazuo Yeri.
Whoa!
And so this guitar here is super rare.
Oh my
because
gosh.
this wood is there's a finite supply of it.
Yeah.
But when I first got this guitar, I just couldn't believe what this thing sounded like. That's what these strings are so dead. I played it so much and I never changed the strings, and I played it till they just nearly fried off the guitar.
Man,
but it's unbelievable the quality of this instrument, all made by hand.
So
like only 12 people touched this guitar.
Holy moly! So if you don't know, so Alvarez Yari, well, you have Yari. Then you have Alvarez Yari, and then you get to Alvarez guitars.
Yeah.
Like the full-blown Yaris are absolutely prestige level, and that's what this is. I love how white that top is.
It's beautiful.
It's really tight grain.
It's very nice. It's Adirondack. It's just amazing. The grain is really wide, and even, very even.
Because it's interesting. So that kind of guitar got kind of.
I love this detail too. That guy.
Oh, how cool is that? That
Yeri symbol, right?
Yeah.
They only put them on the ones that come from that shop.
Okay.
And it's signed in ink by the master luthier, which actually it's his daughter who is now running the shop. I've been told.
Okay, maybe you told me that.
Yeah, so it's ink. You can see the ink. They signed the label for me and everything. It's incredible. The DYM 60 Honduran mahogany HD.
That's amazing.
And I just love it.
I'm gonna come hang out. I gotta come.
Man, you'd have a field day in this place, man. We'd have so much fun if you came up here.
Seriously, yeah, man.
We could just play guitars for all day.
That's what I want.
Yeah,
that is so cool. Well, I want to run through a speed round of a couple questions, and then we'll do some Q&A. So I'll have to look over on YouTube and see some questions. So we talked about speed round. All right, if you had 24 hours to find a guitar that you could play a show with that night, what would you do, and what would you try and find?
Believe it or not, because I've had to do it before, I was robbed on the day of a gig one time.
Oh my gosh!
And had no guitar, so I immediately went to my local Long and McQuaid, and I picked out the best Taylor I could find.
All right.
Because it's not that I'm a huge fan of the sound of them, but they're so consistent in their playability and what they sound like plugged in. I can get along with that easier than any other guitar.
Yeah.
That's what I would do. I'd run and get a Taylor, and then I'd use it for as long as I had to and sell it.
I just picked up this AD-17. It's a round-shouldered Taylor, and it's shockingly good.
Yeah. There's some of them that are just incredible.
Yeah. This one, this one came from Sweetwater, and but yeah, that's not the answer I would have expected. That's really awesome.
That's exactly what I would do, because I trust them for that. They're an every man's guitar, right?
Yeah.
And they're very consistent.
If you had to pick between Neil Young and Bob Dylan.
Oh,
I went Canadian on you too.
As a guitar player, I would probably have to go with Neil Young, only because his usage of that D45 just slew me when I was a kid.
Me too.
That's what made me want one.
Me too.
Yeah, I dreamed of that guitar.
I want to hang on to this 41.
Yeah.
Is that it? And something about that and playing Old Man.
Yep.
Just
Harvest Moon is one that slayed me.
Me too.
How good that guitar sounded. Oh, man. Man, that guitar sounded good.
So that's what I had forgotten about that song, and I started playing it again right when my little boy was born.
Yeah.
And now, like, each of my kids kind of have a song that I played for them, about them, around them, as they're just babies.
Yeah. And guess what Neil Young plays now?
What?
A Boucher.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Robin built a special custom made for him and gave it to him.
Oh, how cool.
When it was put on the Walk of Fame here or something. I can't remember. It was a few years ago. And of course, it sat in the case for a while, and Neil started playing it. Now he can't stop playing it.
Okay.
His manager called Robin and said, "Mr. Young is that's the only guitar he's playing."
That is, dude.
So that's incredible.
I can't imagine the feeling of that. That would be so cool. Man. Okay, so okay, that's the end of that. Let's do some just kind of questions. So they're not coming in. This is the first time I'm using StreamYard to put a video together.
Right.
So I will show this one. So this is Anthony Quails says Duncan Africa is based in Surrey, BC, but they're made in Uganda. Great guitars, and Jay is a really good friend of mine. I've talked to Jay a handful of times. He's an amazingly generous and wonderful guy. And so basically, I think at some point in the 90s, he traveled to Uganda and he met somebody who was trying to build guitars. And he was like, I got to go. And so he went home, packed all of his luthier shop up. He's like, I gave away all of my tools, put them in a shipping container, took them back to Africa. I went back. I taught people how to build guitars, and that's how it got started.
Wow.
And so now they build a couple hundred guitars a year. And I think the majority of production happens in Uganda. They get shipped to Canada. They get assembled. I think the finish is sprayed and applied, and the final setup is done in Canada. And then, but they do. I think they have a shop in the U.S. to help figure out how to just the logistics of, if you're importing into Canada and then you'd import into the U.S., you'd get hit twice. So I think they have some ability to do something different coming into the U.S. So that's the only one I can do the fancy way. Yeah. So
isn't technology wonderful?
Oh, I hate it. Every week I feel like I'm losing a year. Like I have a live show tomorrow, which stresses me out every week. It's always like, you do a live show every week too.
We do one every Wednesday night. Yeah.
And I'm always like, 2 minutes before I'm like, I don't have the thumbnail done, and I didn't do my titles, and I've got to do, and like, oh, I'm wearing a shirt with a stain on it. So it's always like. But yeah, so the last couple minutes, we're just going to do basic Q&A. So if you have questions, let me know. If you want to get our attention, you can do super chats. That's an easier way to kind of get our attention. But yeah. So Jeremy Coate says, I need to know when Jeremy comes to visit. Impromptu pub gig? I'll make the trip from Ottawa to see that.
There you go.
So on my Instagram, somebody had asked a couple questions in there. Okay, hang on. Let me find it. So Buffalo Ken, do you know this guy? So he lives in Oregon. He plays banjo. He's like very cowboy, but he's an amazing guitar player. He says, how do you maintain hand health in a long playing guitar or for a long playing career? How do you take care of your hands?
I didn't do a good job of it. By the time I was about getting close to 30, probably 28 or 29 years old, I was already crippled and had to have double carpal tunnel surgery on both hands. And so that's guaranteed for 25 years. So it's right about now that it should be failing. But other than that, I've had no other problem. But all I can say to you is you should always warm up extensively before you start trying to perform. Because it's just, and I do now. I don't just go and walk on stage anymore and just play, because I used to do that when I was young and crazy. But now, I get quite a bit of playing in during the sound check. I'll go through some really hard things.
Yeah.
And then get the hands working and get but I've been lucky that way too. There's not a lot of arthritis in my family, and we all had good hands.
That's good.
And so, other than that, you just gotta make sure you warm up. It's just like being an athlete from the wrist down, right? Like you don't want to mess with that if you can help it.
Yeah, man, I'm with you. So I wish that I would have taken better care of my ears. I played in a bunch. I played in a bunch of punk rock bands and metal and hardcore bands, and playing in a bunch of basement shows. I would play a full stack in a basement, because it was awesome. And,
Yeah.
But now I get a lot of buzzes in one of my ears, and it's just not
good.
Yeah. So one of the questions, this is Ballast3 on Instagram, says, does playing with a capo reduce the life of my guitar strings?
Not that I know of. If you're using the right kind of strings, any coated strings now, especially elixirs, and the ones that I've switched to are the D'Addario XS. I find them way better than elixirs, and I never thought I'd ever say that.
Yeah.
Because I've been using elixirs for years, and the XS actually sound like an uncoated string, but they're incredibly coated.
Okay.
And they last longer than elixirs, as far as I can see. You know how elixirs will feather, and kind of wear out. But if you're using a coated string, you should have no problem with that sort of thing. And probably, depending on the capo, because probably yourself, Jeremy, if you use a Kaiser or a Shub or something that utilizes that thick black rubber, that actually can get into your string windings, I think.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
But it's not the most normal thing to happen, but generally speaking, any capo shouldn't really, kill your strings or affect it that much.
I used to play in a band where we'd kind of switch around some instruments. So like I'd play drums for a song and somebody would play my guitar. And so my friend Bradford, who would swap and play my guitar every now and then, I always used Page capos.
Yeah.
And he would crank it down so hard that, first of all, it's pulling all the strings out of pitch.
Yeah.
But then I would notice if we did that, like if we play a 3-day weekend or something, I'd come out and my strings, I could feel the divots. In the strings.
Yeah, it's not good.
I think it's a very rare occurrence that it could happen, but it's an interesting thought. So here are two really good questions. So the first one is from my friend Chris. So Rashad 2015 says, ask JP to describe his hatred for Martins. He really does hate Martins. I don't think that's true, but
I absolutely don't hate Martins. I'm disappointed with Martins and again Gibson and these companies that designed what we do, and now they're out of our reach for the most part, and they're charging money for being a boutique guitar when they're not boutique anymore.
That's a good point.
And they're just not. They're built in factories and CMC machines, and the only way you're going to get one that's built the way they're capable of really building guitars to pay top dollar to get it built in their custom shop, which is going to cost you twice as much. And I just think that they should be more available to everyone. Like I remember when I was a child, a D28 only cost about $1,800. Yeah. And now they're like $4,000. Like I just can't afford that for a guitar. That's the other thing that people don't realize. I wish Martin would kind of wake up and realize that they're not the only guitar anymore.
Yeah.
They did invent it, and we wouldn't have that design without them doing the Dreadnought, and Gibson the same way. Gibson invented guitars, right? But there's all these other companies that are building guitars for the same price, but you're getting an actual boutique instrument.
Yeah. Because I think if you're to compare apples to apples, like Martin Custom Shop and Boucher, Husson Dalton, you're around the same price. And I would 10 times out of 10, I'd go with Boucher. I'd go with the small builder.
Yeah.
Because of like the precision, the passion,
I don't hate Martin. I'll end up by saying this. What I hate is when I have uh, 25, 30 messages a week from people who message me and go, I just bought a $3,000 Martin
Yeah.
and the bridge is off. Or I just bought a $3,000 Martin and the frets are sticking out and I can't, the intonation is so bad I can't play it.
Yeah.
Like, that's not fair. That's not
Yeah.
fair for Martin to do that to people like me and you who we're I'm brand loyal to them. I look at them and I still get quivery.
Yeah.
But I'll never buy one. You know, I just can't. I don't trust them. So
yeah. No, so I will say I've had less bad experiences. I'm still like I really like Martin guitars.
I do too. Believe me, if I could find one, I could find one. Oh, I'd love to have one.
I think that in 2012, the D18 was reimagined and they relaunched those.
Yeah.
D18s are the best now they ever have been, in my opinion.
I've heard that.
From
I'd like to try one.
Yeah, from 2017 on,
yep.
the D28 was reimagined.
Yeah.
And it is, I've owned 2 of those. I've owned probably 5 or 6 of the D18s. Gone are the days, for a while, you could find them for $1,400, $1,600, $1,800 if you're really lucky, and I could sell them for $2,000. Now, find them used for $2,000, they're selling for $22,000.
Yeah.
But I think those 2 are the best that they have been. But with that said, I don't think their quality is like, I had a D18 recently that was so buzzy, I didn't know what to do with it. It took me a couple months to get it sorted. But it can be a mess.
Yeah, I love them, and I wish that they would love us.
Yeah.
You know, the same way, all the support that we've given them because of the way they altered the face of music.
Absolutely.
Right? They should be looking at us now and going, okay, boys, we're going to build you 28s and 18s. They're going to be $1,000. And they're going to be solid. And they're going to be just like we used to build them, except they're going to have a good truss system. We're going to get the quality control up to the roof where it used to be.
That is why I bought this Taylor AD17.
Yeah.
I bought it for a bunch of reasons. The biggest reason I bought it was they said lots of playing musicians can't afford an American-made solid wood guitar, so we're going to do it. So they did oven callback and sides and a spruce top. Yep. And this guitar is made in the U.S. It's got a pickup system. It's a full-blown professional instrument with, it's not a hard case. It's like a padded.
Yeah, padded gig bag, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, I'd call it a case, but it's still like soft material. But it's $16.99 for the top of, I mean, that's the pickup.
That's a good price.
You can get it without a pickup for, I think, $13.99 for a natural top. And then
that's awesome for Taylor, because they're very, very expensive as well. They're almost more expensive than Martins.
Yeah.
And the same thing, like you got to realize how many guitars these guys build a year. Like Martin's doing about 13,000 units a year.
I think Taylor is more than that. I think Jeff Huss told me that they're at 40,000 a year.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Which is, I mean, that's like Huss and Dalton. I think they're 300 guitars a year.
Yeah.
And that's 12. I think they have 12 people. They might be getting bigger. I mean, it's all like
Boucher does 450.
Okay.
On a good year, and less on other years, right?
Man, I want to own a Boucher.
You need to have. I was so proud of you when you got that Boucher in the video, man. And I just knew from watching you as much as I do that when you played that guitar, you were going to have an epiphany. And you did.
it has restored my desire for a Rosewood Dreadnought. Because I was kind of, I mean, I bought a Huss and Dalton years ago, and I fell prey to the easiest mistake to make, which is listen to the salesperson and let them sell you what they would have than me. So I was young. I was 20, and I was playing out all the time, and I had some money in my pocket, and I wanted a custom guitar. Yeah. And so I went to Huss and Dalton, and they said, well, we don't sell direct, so you have to go through a dealer. Go to this dealer about an hour away. And I went to them, and the guy was like, you need red spruce top, you need a large sound hole, you need, maple binding and rosewood back and sides. and I got a guitar that was so loud I could not think while I was playing it. It's an amazing guitar. My guitar teacher from growing up bought it from the guy I eventually sold it to, and so it's a mile from here. And Eric has it, and it's perfect for him. But for me, I just bought the wrong guitar. And so when I got that Boucher, I was like, it is wonderful. It's warm and present and loud, and it's dynamic. It's not, because I think a lot of times you have to dig in so hard to get everything out of a Rosewood Dreadnought. And by then, a quiet singer like me can't sing with it.
Yeah.
And that was it the BG52, the SG52.
Yeah. That was an SG, I think, Studio Goose.
Yeah.
I think it was, yeah.
And then also the slot head 12 fret was a monster as well. I mean, both of those.
That's one of his best guitars.
I told them, I was like, how angry would you be if I didn't send these on? And they said, well, they're both sold. Actually, one was sold, and the other one, the guy watched my video, called Rick Tolman and bought it right away.
Yeah.
And,
you can't keep them.
Yeah.
They're 6 to 8 months behind.
Yeah. So
on orders right now. If you order something now, you're going to get it in March.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to get one of their, I'm queued up to get, it's a hybrid OM. It's like the thicker on the back end. It's shallower at the top shoulder. So I'm very excited to play that one.
That'll slay you, that one.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I don't need, like, I have a mortgage and a wife and 3 kids. I don't need to be fine. Like, but yeah. Okay. So here's a question that just came in. So just checked in. What about Simon and Patrick guitars? Are they any good? What are their alternatives? And should I save up for a D18 or a Guild D40?
I would definitely go for the Guild.
Me too.
Yeah, I would definitely go for the Guild. Simon and Patrick, there's nothing wrong with Simon. See, I don't know if you're aware of this, Jeremy, but that Simon and Patrick, Godin,
Seagull,
Art and Lutherie, Seagull, which is part of Godin, Kamaraska. All those guitar companies started in a single town in Quebec called La Patrie. Norman as well, which is Robin's uncle.
That's okay. I've heard that.
They all started there, right? So basically, if you pick up a Simon and Patrick, you're really just picking up a Godin or a Seagull. They're all the same. Or an Art and Lutherie even. They're virtually the same guitars. And they're not bad guitars. They actually are very well built. I find them heavily built. They're heavily built. The necks aren't that comfortable, and they're quiet compared to any other thing you might buy. Although I just played a Seagull 3 days ago that was like a artist custom Seagull, and it blew my mind. It was one of the nicest sounding dreadnoughts, loudest I'd ever heard, and only for like $1,200, $1,300. But I would, if I was you, I would definitely go with the Guild. They're making, as far as I can tell, and well, Jeremy, you know, they're making better guitars now for the money than most people are doing now. Yeah,
I think so too. Yeah,
and they're exciting guitars, right? They look cool. They get all kinds of different designs, different wood trim, all trim level. They're just really, really cool. I went to the catalog a few days ago, and my mind was blown.
I totally agree. And I think, I mean, there's a good reality if you're going between those two guitars, between a D18 or a D40, you can't really go wrong. Like, both are really good guitars. By the time you're spending that much money, it's hard to spend $2,000 and not get a really good guitar these days.
Yeah.
But I am always going to fall more on cooler features, more provenance in how it's built, and I'm going to go for like cool and exciting and rare more than like a D18 that looks like everyone's D18 for the last almost 100 years.
I'm same way. I'd rather have a little bit of extra, blitz and bling on something than to just be the other guy with a white guitar sitting there, right?
Exactly.
Spruce and rosewood, or spruce and mahogany, big deal. Like, I'd like to have some kind of personality on it that's different,
Absolutely, me too. And that's what, like, way back, if y'all were watching, way back when JP was showing his artist model with Boucher, that pick guard is very like the guitar has a lot of Martin cues, but
It does.
that pick guard is super like super like Gibson in the
Yeah.
60s. Where did the pick guard come from on that one?
They made it custom.
It's so cool.
Yeah, they designed the pick guard based upon the things that I do with the guitar, and they knew I needed to be up here, protected up here, so they actually cut this from I can't remember where they had it from, but there was it's the same pick guard shape as is on their jumbos, but they literally just cut it smaller.
Okay.
So it's the jumbo pick guard on this tiny little triple O guitar.
It's
right?
just like the proportions are right.
Yeah,
cool.
it's just perfect, and it looks so cool when you're seeing it. Just like,
man,
it just looks so good. It's very well done.
All right, well, I'm gonna call Guillaume after this.
Yeah, I was just talking to him this morning.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a buddy of mine just bought number 48 of this, and they're only 13 guitars away, or even I think only 10 guitars away from it now.
Wow.
So the guy wanted number 48 for personal reasons, and so I just procured that guitar for him.
Oh man.
So they're gonna build 48, make sure it has a specific serial number just for him. And it's coming down to Antigonish here at Glenn's shop, and the guy's gonna pick it up. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So a super chat just came in. JP, what is your favorite model from the Epiphone inspired by Gibson line that you recently reviewed? Trust the build quality and tone.
Oh,
this
yeah.
Is from Charlie Pritt.
My favorite one is the Hummingbird, which you don't have out here. But that guitar is one of the best sounding dreadnoughts I've ever played. It's ridiculous.
Man. That is high
just
praise.
Ridiculous. It sounds like a D28 Martin. Awesome. It really does. It's just got so much punch.
And it's mahogany back and sides?
No, maple.
Oh, okay. Wow.
They're built out of the original woods like the real thing is.
Got it.
So it's a maple guitar as far as I can remember. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it's maple back and sides.
That's cool.
And yeah, it's flawless. I've recorded with it. It's on my new album. It's just ridiculous. It's one of the biggest, fattest, warmest sounding guitars, and easy to play. And as for fit and finish, they're flawless. There's not a single mistake on that guitar.
That's awesome.
Nothing. We've been inside it with a mirror and everything. There's no.
Man, that's really high praise. Are they made in a different factory than the other Epiphones? Because the other Epiphones are made, I think, in the same factory as the Court factory or Samick. Those seem to be the two that make most of them.
I'm not sure, but I was told by the representative here in Canada that it's interesting is he said, if you want to buy these guitars, buy them in the next couple of years. And I said, why? He said, because they're brand new.
Oh, yeah.
And the people from Gibson and Epiphone went there in person to set up all their new jigs and equipment and all the things they needed to build a guitar, and trained the people that were there to build just these instruments. So he said the first few thousand of these guitars are going to be absolutely ridiculous. And then they might start to get complacent after a while, right? Yeah. As they push more of them out. But everyone that I've only played one, and I wouldn't even call it bad. It just happened to have a bad action on it. It just needed to be lowered. That's it. But every other one that I've played in a shop, and the three that I own, I bought the Jumbo, the Hummingbird, and the 45. And then I bought the 335 inspired by Gibson. And the guys in the shop were like, this guitar blows the actual one we have away. The 335 was $4,600 and this thing was $700.
Okay. But
crazy.
Yeah, and okay, so if you have Gibson on one side and Epiphone on the other, there's always been a substantial difference.
Oh, yes.
But I always think, like, especially when you look at like the Dove or the old, like the J200 versus the EJ220 or EJ200, light years different. But I've always felt like if you look at the Dot to the 335, like laminate top, back, and sides, maple rim, like I mean, those two have always been very similar, other than hardware and finish.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm like, now the gap is even closer, and you're like, when you look at the difference in price. So how much was the Epiphone 335?
About $800.
Holy cow! And then
And now, mind you, one thing that has to be clarified, and people keep making this mistake. I am only speaking about the inspired by Gibson line.
Yes. Yeah.
It is not the regular Epiphone line at all. There's no comparison.
Yeah.
These guitars all appear to be finished in nitro, although they say I can't really get an answer on that.
Yeah.
But they look nitro. They're all satin finish. There's no sticker inlay on them. They're inlaid Epiphone. The quality of the inlays is fabulous. Like, it's not plastic. It's not mother of toilet seat. Yeah. It's actual abalone, and like, they're using real materials.
Yeah.
All solid wood, solid everywhere, back, sides, and top.
I'm coming out of this video with a list of guitars I have to find. Yeah,
I mean, you'll just be fascinated by it, because I was fascinated, knowing the whole history of Gibson and Epiphone, and thinking, now why would Gibson? But you know what? I have to commend them, because I know what they're doing. They're doing what I said I wish Martin would do. They're putting out Gibson guitars under Epiphone that are super, super high quality for no money. And I'm not exactly sure what that entails, but they're doing it, and it's working, and I love them for it. I think
that it's probably a high level thought of moving that ratio of money to value, or money to quality. I think they're just trying to get it closer to 1-to-1, and then they'll get people like, okay, if this is good at $1,000, I'm going to save up over the next 6 months, and I'm going to buy a Les Paul Standard. I'm going to buy a Gibson.
That's right.
I'll buy a J45. Yeah. I think it's a great move. And
you should see. I wish to God I another guitar I just realized I have here. There's a very rare Epiphone called the Excellente. It was made by Epiphone in Kalamazoo right after they were purchased in 1957. Mm-hmm. They built it from 57 to 70, and it was primarily built for Loretta Lynn. And they reissued this guitar, and I bought one. It's here in the room. Just can't find it right now. It's inspired by Gibson. Yeah. And you wouldn't believe this guitar. It's frightening how nice it is. And it's the most ornate thing you ever saw. If you go online and look up the Epiphone Excellente. Okay. What a guitar that is. It's absolutely beautiful. And they have a Chinese version, of course, like the same as these others, inspired by Gibson, but they also do an American version built in Montana, right? And it's an Epiphone. So it's really cool how they're utilizing the Epiphone brand suddenly. And if you're like me, I was always around those guitars when I was a kid. They always made, a nice affordable electric and a nice acoustic, and they were just always around, Yeah. So it's cool to see them finally kind of let's push Epiphone. Epiphone was a fantastic company.
Yeah, I think
for years before they got involved with Gibson,
And Epiphone, when they moved from Hoboken to Kalamazoo, there were a huge chunk of builders that hung around, and they were a guild of guitar players or guitar builders who became guild. Yep. And so that's why I think that's why we both love old Epiphones, and old Epiphones are connected to old guild. And I love when you can kind of trace the DNA. The D55 is amazing and sounds nothing like it does not sound like other rosewood and spruce guitars. Because it's built more it's got that DNA from Epiphone and Gibson and Okay, so here's another brand that I know you and I both. All right, well, let's talk about our reaction. So Jason Brooks says, what does JP think of Larrivee, Canadian, and the best guitar I've ever played?
I love Larrivee because I love John. All right. And John is the grandfather of many builders here, as such as Grit Laskin, Linda
Because he's way out
Manzer.
on the West Coast, right?
Yeah, he taught a lot. He taught all these major builders how to build guitars, and when him and his wife were building these instruments, and she was doing all the inlay, and he was building the guitars by himself. They were world class instruments, and they were actually quite affordable 30 years ago, comparatively, right? They still cost $2,000 or $3,000, but it wasn't. It was, a pretty good chunk of change in the late 80s. But some of the nicest guitars I've ever seen were built by him, and I've owned several Larave's, and I always have the same problem: is the neck profile doesn't agree with me.
That's how I feel about Seagull.
Yeah, I find his necks to feel like they're almost concave, and the necks have a sharp edge on them, right? Not the frets, just the angle, the way the neck sits in my hand.
Yeah,
I can't get along with it, and it makes my hand sore.
Man,
and I can't do it. And I love them; they sound incredible. I've owned some killer Larave's.
Yeah,
but I just never could keep them on the road.
Man, that's really valid.
Yeah.
For me, so I've owned a couple. Had an L10 and had an OM9, and the OM9.
I had a 9.
Okay, that's one where I was like, this is mind-bogglingly good. I got it used for $1,500. I got it used for $1,100, and I sold it for $1,500.
That's a good deal.
This is 10 years ago, so it's. I mean, it's been a while, but and then when I was in New Orleans, I bought every single Larrivee OM, like OM2, LO2, DO3s, all those. Like, I mean, I think that they are a D3 is better than a D18.
Oh yeah, I would have to agree. I mean,
I think that they're amazing. The neck profiles are great for me.
Yeah.
But I can completely see they're very C-shaped. So I feel the same way with Seagull, where to me, they make my hands cramp. They feel too big. They're too thick.
Yeah.
They're just. But I think that's I think becoming a mature guitar player involves. Okay, there were guitar brands. This is how I operated 15 years ago. There were guitars that I loved, and then there were brands I would argue about. And I would think less of people like, you're an idiot if you like that guitar. And now there's much more peace. This is a Patton Oswalt joke. There are now guitars that I love and guitars I don't care about.
Right.
And it's just way more peace in that. And so for me, I'm like, it's not my thing. But I understand. I know enough people that love Seagulls or love brands that are not my thing at all.
Well, the thing about it is that every single person, the love of a guitar is completely subjective, right?
Absolutely.
So you can't crap on anybody for their preference, because that's the thing that speaks to them. So you must leave them alone because they're on their journey, right? And it'll speak to them and cause them to develop to a certain point, and then possibly they'll go, wait, I need something better, or I need something different, not necessarily better. So you should never shame anybody for whatever about guitars. If they want to play a Denver, let them play it. And if that's what makes them happy. Some of the best guitar players I've ever seen in my life play old, crappy, beat up, holes in them.
Yeah.
And they get some of the greatest music I've ever heard. And I wonder, why don't they go buy a new guitar? Well, because that guitar speaks to them.
It does a thing.
And they can't change that. It becomes part of your DNA.
Absolutely.
When a guitar gets into your heart, right? And you can't turn it loose.
Yeah, and that's totally true. So my friend Jansen Philbrun is he's a good friend, and he's a good guitar. He's a great guitar hunter. He always finds really cool stuff. And so he said, I just bought a Collings Madagascar Rosewood. JP, what do you think of Madagascar Rosewood? Is it worth the extra expense?
I've only owned one Madagascar Rosewood, and it was a one-off advanced jumbo Gibson.
Whoa!
And it was so rare. It came with 2 certificates It came with a certificate that stated where the age and species of the wood was
And
so
that's
rare.
probably for CITES as well, right?
Well, no, it was Gibson,
Okay.
because this particular batch of wood was very small, and the lots were numbered, so they had the number of the back and sides out of, like, it was 11 out of 80 or whatever it was, right? And then they had a second certificate that was described that it was a brand new body shape they had never done before.
Okay.
And I loved that guitar. I loved it, and it was very expensive. I bought it at the 12th fret in Toronto, and a very close friend of mine, who you might know, he's an American singer-songwriter named Chuck Brodsky.
Okay, I've heard the name.
He lives in North Carolina now, and he came to my house to record. I had produced 5 records on him in my studio. He came up to do the 4th one, I think, and he played a handmade Brazilian rosewood guitar out of California. He played this Gibson, and he loved that guitar so much. I gave it to him.
Man.
And he cried for an hour, and then he made the record, and he went home with his guitar. He still plays that guitar to this day.
How amazing is that?
That's 10 years ago. And that was one of the nicest sounding guitars, and beautiful. What a job Gibson did of that guitar. So I can't recommend Madagascar Rosewood enough. It really did have some other personality than Indian or Brazilian.
Yeah.
It was almost a mixture of the two. It had the darkness of Brazilian, but the mid and projection of Indian.
Okay.
It was so nice. So nice. Yeah.
Oh man, that's cool. Okay. My take, my favorite. So I've never owned a guitar with Madagascar Rosewood. A few years ago, so I have a lot of family in Nashville, which is really convenient. None of them are guitar players, but it's a good excuse. Like, hey, there's a lot going on here. I'm gonna go disappear for a couple hours. And so I was at Carter Vintage on Christmas Eve a couple of years ago.
I love that place.
It's so cool.
Oh,
my friend Bo works there, and he always is like, "Come back here," and he'll pull out the just banana stuff. But one of the guitars that I played a couple of years ago that I was really excited about was one of the Martin Authentic. It was a 1937 28, and it was Madagascar Rosewood back and sides. And that guitar, it's still. It hangs with me. There are a couple guitars I've played where I just think this is the best sounding guitar, because it was everything about it. Sounded great, it felt great in my arms, and I could feel it. What you were saying earlier, like, rattles your ribs. I could feel it, and I just felt connected to it. And what I love is I immediately played something I never played before, and just was discovering what this guitar could do and what came out of me with it. And so I think they're awesome. Now that guitar was $68.99, I think. And so I'm like, is the difference between the guitar I have at home and this worth $4,000 more than I paid for my Husson Dalton? Because I bought my Husson Dalton used for $2,000, which no one has.
That's a great deal.
Especially since I made a video on it, no one has found a Husson Dalton TDM for less than $3, and most of them have my videos in the description. Like, see, he says it's great. You should pay $4,000 for it.
You gotta love that.
Yeah. So okay, let's. We've been going for an hour and a half. So
yeah, I'm gonna have to roll out of here pretty soon. I got a supper date.
So let's call it there. There are many more questions than we could answer today. I'm very thankful for all of you. JP, this is an incredible gift that you've given us with your time and friendship. So thanks, man.
Well, I really want you to come do one of these on our channel.
Absolutely.
We'd have so much fun.
I know. Let's do it.
Wait till I'm mediating this thing. I'm going to ask you all kinds of questions and embarrass the hell out of you.
Hey, that's good. That's good, man. I'm in. So you say when, you say where. Send me the link.
Okay.
And, awesome. Cool. So for people that don't know you, JP, how do they find you?
They can find me on YouTube at, of course, www.youtube.com/c/JP Cormier. They can go to my website, jp-cormier.com. And also want to make note of my online school, which is called mastermusicmethod.com. And there you go. It's
That's
easy
amazing.
to find me.
Perfect.
Yep.
All right. This is so good. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for everything you do, Jeremy. Man, you really are a special person. And I get a lot of I got really inspired when I first discovered you and saw what you were doing and saying. I realized I wasn't alone out here being nuts about guitars. So I'm just so happy to have been able to link up with you like this.
Man, I appreciate it. I feel the same way. So I live. Let me show you one thing before.
All right.
So.
This play some hunting music for you there.
There you go. That's good. This is a drum, which is neither of our fortes.
No.
But the music shop in my hometown exploded. This drum was in the guitar shop, and there was a natural gas explosion.
Oh my God.
So I went through. They were getting ready to bulldoze everything. The investigations are done. They found where the leak came from.
Wow.
There was a leak under the ground, and it wiped out 6 businesses and a recording studio.
Jeez.
And they're rebuilding the studio. They're moving around the corner. They also have a record pressing factory over there. It's a friend of mine from high school, but yeah. So this comes from the shop, and it's crazy. And the thing I always feel like what you said was when you feel kind of homeless musically. So that's where, like, I mean, literally, our community does not have a guitar shop right now. Now, my buddy Elliot does a bunch of used stuff, but we don't have anywhere to get the normal stuff. But feeling alone is a thing that it's a frequent feeling that I've had in the last little bit.
Yeah.
And anyway, I'm glad that we're friends, and I'm glad that we.
I am too. And you reach out to me anytime you need.
Absolutely.
Anything. I mean,
perfect.
Don't be feeling alone, because you ain't. There's a lot of us out here.
It's true. Cool.
A lot of them watching you too. So that means something, you know.
I appreciate it. It means very much. So, all right. Thanks so much, JP. This has been really, really fun.
Right, buddy.
All right, man. See ya.
Thanks, man.